Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. With the rate of celiac disease and other non-gluten sensitivity disorders soaring, many folks have decided to simply avoid wheat altogether. Is there something about the wheat that we eat today that differs from the wheat of the past? Our guest in studio is Cyndi O'Meara, nutritionist and co-director of the recent documentary, What's with Wheat? The Truth They Don't Want You to Know. Also author of the book, Changing Habits, Changing Lives. And she's here with us to talk about, as she says, this highly addictive product that's making all of us more susceptible to disease. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Cyndi.
Thank you, Neal.
Thank you for returning. You're the co-author of this brand new documentary. Talk about the documentary, why you produced it.
Well, I was heading into my late 40s and starting to put on weight and lots of aches and pains and anxiety in the mornings, like 3 o'clock in the morning, just wake up with it. Mm-hmm. And I had always eaten well. I had made all my own breads, cakes and cookies. And, I ate a good diet. And I had children that I fed. And then I decided I had to do something because I wasn't feeling good. And so I went on an elimination protocol and lost 9 kilos of weight in 3 weeks, which is 18 pounds. I lost all my aches and pains, clarity of mind. I didn't realize how my brain was just so foggy. So I didn't realize that. And then all my anxiety disappeared. And when I started to reintroduce foods back into the diet, because I went on a very simple elimination, all I did was eat meat, vegetables, and a few fruits. So then when I started to introduce the foods back in, the minute I introduced wheat, overnight I gained 700 grams, which would be 1.5 pounds, just overnight, which is water weight. So I know I was inflamed. And my sore back came back. And it was just, I went, okay, what's wrong with wheat? And so I went on a bit of research. Yeah, it was wheat. I knew it was wheat at that point.
Now, you're also an author of the book, Changing Habits, Changing Lives. Is your experience with wheat the reason that you wrote this book, or were you an author before?
Well, I wrote Changing Habits, Changing Lives probably back around 1990, 1991, but I didn't publish it until 1998. And it was a bit of a revolution at the time because I was back then talking about, we're eating way too much wheat. Let's, cut down on the wheat. I didn't say cut it out. I just said, there's other grains out there, because I was noticing as a nutritional consultant that every time I looked at someone's diet, they thought they had variety, but in actual fact, it was wheat and dairy, and that was it, because they'd have breakfast cereals with milk, and then they might have a muffin with butter, or even margarine, and then they'd have a cheese sandwich, and then they might have biscuits and or crackers and cheese, and then for dinner they'd have pasta and cheese. So I noted that in the beginning. So I just that was 2 chapters. One was on dairy and one was on wheat. Yeah. Changing Habits, Changing Lives was an education program about what have they done to our food. So I started with breakfast cereals and then salt and sugar and chocolate and wheat and dairy and anything I could come up with that showed the processing, the additives, whatever they were doing to it, and explain to people, well, what's the alternative to what you are now buying? And it went to bestseller here in Australia. I self-published because no publisher wanted it. It was too controversial. Really? And that's where Changing Habits, the actual company, started from. So I did one book and then another book and then another book and another book. So I've written 9 books that are either on the internet through electronic version, or you can get hard copies of them. And then, I guess we've become a very trusted company here in Australia and worldwide, by the way, since What's with Wheat was released. We've got a worldwide audience, and America in particular. We have 80% of the people who have downloaded the movie are out of the US.
You talk about this brand new product that we call wheat being highly addictive. You kicked the habit, for lack of a better term. How do you tell other folks like me or other healthcare professionals, how do you advise them to talk maybe to their patients about kicking this wheat habit just like you did? Where do you start?
Well, it depends on whether they're in crisis or not. So let's say they have an autoimmune disease that we know is linked to gluten, or they have non-celiac gluten sensitivity where you're looking at yourself and you're going, is this 50? Is this what 50 looks like? Aches, pains, gaining weight, anxiety. So it depends on how desperate they are to get better and make a change. I think that's number one. And if they're motivated, it's very easy. We've got the 6 weeks, no week program that guides them through getting off these foods and getting off wheat. So that's number one. If it's somebody that doesn't have a wheat issue but knows that they should be probably having a little bit more variety in their diet, then we just give alternatives. We just say, well, instead of having breakfast cereals in the morning, why don't you try eggs and bacon, back to the old-fashioned foods that we used to eat, or eggs with a salad or an omelette or something like that. So throughout Changing Habits, Changing Lives, I give alternatives to what you think is good for you. But I think education, and that's why I've written books and why I write blogs and why I'm always on social media making comment about the conflict that is happening out there. But we do know wheat is addictive, and whether it's addictive because that's what we've always eaten, or whether it's addictive because of the chemicals that are made in the liver from wheat, and one of them is called glutenomorphin, which is an endorphin, which makes you feel good.
Is that right?
Yeah, we know that it does that, and but I don't think it's bad that foods give us a high, because if foods didn't give us something, then we may not eat. But people have to realize that is there. So to ask somebody to give up their breads and their cereals and their pastas and their muffins and their cakes can be quite daunting. And so we do it in a step-by-step manner as opposed to eradicating everything immediately. But if I have somebody come to me who's on 5 medications, they have Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid condition where it's an autoimmune disease where the body's eating the thyroid, I give it to them straight. And I say to them, if you continue to eat gluten, then your body is going to continue to consume your thyroid, and you will have to be on thyroid medications for the rest of your life. But let's say 6 weeks to 3 months, and let's see how good you feel, and then go back to tests with your medical doctor and see if you need to continue to eat this thyroid or take this thyroid medication. And I had a young girl come to me exactly like that, 21, 5 medications, an absolute mess. And what we did was that over a 3-month period, we just really concentrated on her diet. And she went back to her doctor and she's off every medication. She doesn't even have Hashimoto's anymore.
Really? That's amazing. That's amazing. All because of removing wheat from the diet.
We did do a lot more, but wheat was a big part of that.
Where can our listeners go and get more information about Changing Habits, Changing Lives, and also about the brand new documentary that you've co-directed?
Yeah, you can actually get Changing Habits, Changing Lives on Kindle, on Amazon. It's available. It's also available on my website, which is changinghabits.com.au. If you would like to download the movie What's With Wheat, you can watch it on whatswithwheat.com. And there's also social media. You can go to Facebook, What's With Wheat and Changing Habits are both available on social media if people would like to just check out what we're doing and what we're saying, and more research about non-celiac gluten sensitivity and gluten's role in autoimmune disease will also be on both of those sites.
It's been a pleasure, Cyndi.
Thank you, Neal.
Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also find us at hpr.fm. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. You're listening to Health Professional Radio, and I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today.